Hello. It's 1 minute to 7, so I probably went live a little bit early. So I'll be interested to see if anyone joins me. So this is my first ever Facebook Live, and I'm not going to lie, I'm very scared. But you know, sometimes to succeed, you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. So that's what I'm doing today. So I'm going to talk to you about whether or not you should have a rehearsal. So I feel like I should wait another minute or so just in case anyone else wants to join us. My husband was very sweet. He plumped up all the cushions here behind to make sure that they were looking on point. I had better things to be stressing about than that. So, interesting. I have no idea if anyone's watching. I need to figure out these Facebook Lives. Anyway, what I'll do is I'm going to get cracking anyway. So here we go. So in a nutshell, you know, some people are going to want a rehearsal and some people are not going to want a rehearsal. And that's totally fine. So don't let anyone tell you that you should or you shouldn't necessarily. It's basically your choice. It depends on your personality. But yeah, to summarize, if you're having a small bridal party, and the ceremony does not include many rituals or readings, and you're a pretty easygoing kind of couple, then you can probably get away with not having a rehearsal. However, if your wedding is a bit more formal, and especially if you have children participating in the ceremony, then I would probably recommend that you do one. Personally, you know, total transparency, I'm a big fan of rehearsals. You know, the main reason, without a doubt, is that I feel they make everything run smoother on the day. And it's a great opportunity to tap into all the knowledge and the expertise of the celebrant at the rehearsal. Now, having said all that, I've done lots of weddings where there hasn't been a rehearsal for couples who just didn't feel that they needed one. And they worked out absolutely fine too. So either way is fine. But what I'm going to do now is go through some of the pros and cons of having a rehearsal or not having a rehearsal so that you can figure out what's going to be best for you. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is the list of why you should have a rehearsal. So first up, it's going to ease your nerves on the day. Absolutely, no doubt in my mind, it's going to make you less nervous on the day. I can't guarantee you won't be nervous at all, but I can guarantee that if you've had a rehearsal, it's definitely going to dampen down some, at least some of those nerves. The second thing is, it's also going to ease the nerves of your bridal party. I know that sounds weird, but your bridal party get nervous too. Maybe if they've been in another wedding before, then maybe not so much. But if they haven't been in a wedding, I can pretty much guarantee that they probably will be nervous, especially if they're going to be the ones walking down the aisle first. So yeah, something to consider to be kind to your bridal party. I can guarantee you that the photos will look better if you have a rehearsal, because rehearsals are all about choreography, timing, and positioning. And these are some of the key factors in what makes a great photo. So inches can make all the difference to a good photo. And if the bridal party aren't mindful of their positioning, then the photos can just look really off. So, you know, if you're having an arbor and the couple don't know to stand in the middle, then literally every photo during your wedding can be a little bit skewy and, you know, looks terrible. So if you have a rehearsal, a celebrant will go over all these details like how to hold your bouquet, how the blokes stand, and all in all, it just makes for better looking photos, in my opinion. Another advantage to having a rehearsal is that you will nail the entrance. So a rehearsal is a great time for figuring out when the flower girl or the page boy and the bridesmaid, when they're all going to walk. And also to see if they can hear the music from where they're starting to walk in. So it can kind of be stressful doing this on the fly on the wedding day if you haven't had a rehearsal. So what we can do is we can practice the pace so that, you know, the bridesmaids don't go too fast or too slow. And if there's somebody walking you down the aisle, a father or anybody else, then they probably won't know what to do when they get to the top. But if we've had a rehearsal, I mean, it's obvious. They're just going to give you a hug and, you know, maybe shake hands. But if we've had a rehearsal, we can really nut that out and make it look smooth and then look better in the photos as well. And nobody will be hovering awkwardly and not knowing what to do next. Also, if you've got children, it can be really difficult having children during your ceremony. And it's quite likely that the flower girl or the page boy could get stage fright. So having a rehearsal means that, you know, they can also practice their walk down the aisle. So it can be quite intense on the day if you haven't had a rehearsal. And this little person, depending on what age they are, they're the first person to head down the aisle and all eyes are on them. So, I mean, you can't control a child no matter what, even if you have had a rehearsal, but still it's going to give you a good idea if they are going to make it to the top of the aisle, and it can help them to practice it too. Now, every venue and every location is different and has its own considerations. So it's easier to make changes if you're having a rehearsal, last minute changes if you need to. So you might have thought you wanted the signing table on one side, but then at the rehearsal you realize actually the view's kind of better on the other side, so you can make the plan to move it. And just things like, you know, you might figure out where the shade is, if the sun's going to be in your eyes, and if you want to move the positioning at all. So sometimes, not in every case, it can be useful having a rehearsal just to nod out a few of those things. And rehearsals are also a great time for practicing the music. So not if you're having live musicians, but if you're pressing play on the Celebrant's PA, a rehearsal is a great opportunity to give the person who's pressing play a little bit of a lesson. Of course, it can be done on the wedding day, but it's a little bit less stressful if you do it at the rehearsal. And there might be quite a lot of knobs, volume, and different levels on the Celebrant's PA. It can be a little bit daunting. So yeah, rehearsal's a good time to practice that. And also they can practice the fade so that there's no abrupt stopping. And also, if you're, depending on who's downloading the music, whether it's you or your celebrant, you might just want to check if if you've downloaded the correct version of the song. So that's a good time. One of the main reasons to have a rehearsal is also so that you can complete the declaration of no legal impediment to marriage. So this can be done on the day of the ceremony, but not everybody wants to, for example, get out of their car and have to sign that document. So for no other reason than you don't want to do that, you might choose to have a rehearsal so you can sign the Dom Lim, as it's known. And the last reason that I think it's good to have a rehearsal is that it can be good for the bridal party to get to know each other. Maybe not everyone on both sides of the bridal party know each other already. So it can kind of be, you know, a bit of a good bonding session. And yeah, rehearsals, if they're done well, should be a bit of fun and not a chore. Now, having said all that, now I want to go through a list of some reasons why you might choose not to have a rehearsal. So, if you're a cruisy kind of couple that takes things in your stride, then there's a good chance that you might not need one. If you don't care about things like, you know, the photos being symmetrical or the spacing or the pace of the bridesmaids, if you don't care if that stuff isn't exact, then the chances are you're going to get away without having one. So, you know, the celebrant is there on the day to kind of stage manage everything and make sure that things run smoothly. So if you haven't had a rehearsal, you might find that the celebrant just kind of tugs you into position. Yeah, and if you don't mind that, that's good. I would say for some people, not having a rehearsal can actually add to the excitement and the suspense on the day of the wedding. So you might be the kind of person that finds it more thrilling not to have stepped through anything and that you're experiencing everything for the first time. So for some people that can be stressful, and for other people that might appeal to them. Now, you might choose not to have a rehearsal because it's just not that convenient. You know, it's fine if you're staying at the venue the night before, but if you're not, then you might not want to travel up to the venue, you know, the night before or the week before. It just might not be that convenient for you. You might have better things that you'd like to be doing the day before your wedding, like, you know, getting your nails done, spending time with your out-of-town guests, or preparing your speech. So yeah, you might just decide it's not a good use of your time. That's fine. The other thing to consider is that most celebrants do charge for a rehearsal, you know, and that's to cover, you know, their time and petrol going to the ceremony location. And you might just decide, just for budgetary reasons, that it's just one more expense that you don't want to incur, and that's totally fine too. Now, so if you decide that you are going to have a rehearsal, these are my little tips for some things that I think you should know. So if you're having live music, at the wedding, there's more than likely they're not going to be able, the musicians are not going to be able to come to the rehearsal, unless of course they're your friends or family, in which case you can probably coerce them to come. But if you're paying musicians to come on the day of the ceremony, it's very unlikely that they're going to come to the rehearsal. So my tip is to download the walking in song to a phone so that you can play it through your Celebrant's PA, and just so you can at least practice with the music, even though it won't be the live version. Now, my next tip is, the rehearsal's not there to go through all the words during the ceremony. It's really just to do the choreography. But one thing that I recommend that you really don't do is do your vows, of course, at the rehearsal. It seems obvious, but I just wanted to say it. But I do think that you should practice speaking into the microphone at the rehearsal so you get a feel for how close to hold the microphone to your mouth. The basic rule is it should be close enough that you can lick it. And if it's down here, you probably can't be heard. And if you do weird things, if you're nervous and you kind of tilt it away, you probably aren't going to be able to be heard. So I do recommend practicing with the microphone at the rehearsal. But yeah, don't say your actual vows. You want to leave the wow factor for the day. Now, I wanted to address, maybe a lot of people ask me like when they should have rehearsal and where they should have a rehearsal. So generally, I'm going to say that the best time to have rehearsal is the day before the wedding, so either in the morning or the evening. Now, rehearsals can be tricky to coordinate because your venue might be having a wedding the day before and your celebrant will more than likely have a ceremony the day before. So you got to kind of figure out the timings of all those things. But yeah, generally, the morning or the evening of the day before works well. Now, you don't have to have the rehearsal on site. Obviously, it's better if you can practice the walking in at the actual location. But having said that, it might just be more convenient for you to practice it at your house, the celebrant's house, or a local park. And the rehearsal will still be useful even if you don't do it on site. Just depends what's convenient for you. Also, you don't have to do it the day before. It might just suit you better to have it on the Sunday before or any evening that week. So yeah, just have a think about that. Anything goes. Just think about what's convenient for you. Some people like to have the rehearsal on the evening before so they can have the rehearsal and then go to, dinner with their friends or family or whatever they're doing. So just think about how you want that day to look for you. Now, what I would say is it's important to book in the date and time of your rehearsal sooner rather than later. So like I mentioned, rehearsals can be tricky to coordinate. There's a lot of people involved, and the venue and the celebrant all need to be available at your preferred time. So the sooner you can figure out what you want and book people in, the better. If you do start the rehearsal on time, it normally should take about 30 minutes or maybe maximum 45 minutes. So that will be a good guide for you if you're planning your day. So who should be invited? Well, of course, the two people getting married, the bride and groom, the bride and bride, or the groom and groom. The person who walks you down the aisle. So traditionally, obviously, it's the father, but anything goes these days. If you're having flower girls or page boys, it's great if they can be there. And of course, the rest of the bridal party, depending on how many's in your bridal party. Maybe the person doing the reading also wants to practice on the microphone, and the person operating the music, it's good for them to get a lesson then. Now, that's the optimum. But having said all that, if someone can't make it to the rehearsal, it's totally fine. It's definitely not worth you stressing over or getting into an argument with someone because they can't be there. The celebrant will just work with whoever is there. Honestly, even if it ended up being just the couple and the celebrant, it would still be useful. But yeah, ideally, get as many of those people as you can, but don't stress if you can't. So I guess to summarize, I would just say that rehearsals can be a welcome addition to your ceremony preparations, or they can be just another annoying thing on your to-do list. So it's basically up to you to decide which of those feels right for you. Now, so I hope you enjoyed it. That was probably I probably spoke very quick, a little bit quicker than I wanted to. But if you have any questions, you can type them in now and I would be happy to answer them. And if anyone missed the start of this live, don't worry, or if you had to leave early, that's fine. I'm actually publishing a blog on my website today, and it basically just sums up everything that I've just said. So you can refer to that. And my website is juliemuircelebrant.com.au and /blog, or you can just find it in the menus. So I'm just having a look here. Oh, hi, Jacinta. Thank you so much for saying that you would recommend having one and that it wasn't, it was good. Actually, that's one thing that I would say. A lot of my couples, they're a little bit on the fence, they're not sure. And whenever a couple decides to have a rehearsal, they always say to me afterwards that it was a good use of their time. They never regret it. So if you're on the fence, that might be some reassurance for you. Katie is a photographer that I know, and she's saying, yeah, if you do start on time. So what I would say about rehearsals is they're kind of a funny one. You know, people are excited. A lot of extra family members might be coming, you know, partners of people in the bridal party, and that's totally fine. But what I would say is it can be kind of distracting. And so, you know, hopefully the bridal party are going to listen to what the celebrant is saying. But sometimes if someone is not involved in the rehearsal, it is good if they can just kind of sit at the side and be quiet. But yeah, I don't want to dampen anyone's spirits on the day. But yeah, it's kind of respectful to the venue and to the celebrant if you try and start the ceremony, or sorry, the rehearsal on time. For all you know, the celebrant could have another rehearsal or another wedding to go to. So I know that the celebrant will appreciate it if you start the rehearsal on time. Or I just want to say hello to my friend Rhonda. She's a celebrant in training, and I'm glad you like the advice, Rhonda. Rhonda, if you ever want to come to one of my rehearsals to see me in action, I can check with the couple, and you're welcome to join me. Yeah, so look, I think that's basically it. I mean, I tried to make it as self-explanatory as I could, and hopefully you found that useful. My plan is to do more of these Facebook Lives. I'm going to, every time I write a blog, I might do a Facebook Live to accompany it. So is that a good idea? Can I get a show of love there? If people want me to do more of these? Yeah, look, I don't want to waste anyone's time. So I would just like to say thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And if you have a preferred day of the week or a preferred time for me to do these in the future, just let me know and I would be happy to accommodate your request. So without further ado, sending love and yeah, I hope you found that useful. Bye.